Welcome into the DNVR Rockies Podcast, brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee, where now you can get 25% off your first purchase with code DNVR25 over at StravaCraftCoffee.com. I'm your host, Patrick Lyons, and joining me today is a very special guest, star center fielder for the Albuquerque Isotopes there in AAA for the Rockies. It's Wynton Bernard. What's going on, Wynton?
So, Patrick, how you doing?
Doing well. Really glad you were able to take some time out of your busy schedule. You're down there right now in Scottsdale reporting for spring training. How are things going so far in the onset?
Everything's going super good. It's just the preliminary stuff, COVID intake test, and the physicals and everything. But everybody's down here. We're excited to get going. We've been waiting for this for a long time.
I bet. Now let's jump into the Albuquerque connection here and how you actually got linked up to the Rockies, because I do want to talk about, growing up in Southern California and whatnot. But one of those community connections you had down there was Connor Joe. You're working out with him last offseason. Lo and behold, Bud Black's there. Next thing you know, you're a member of the Rockies organization. Let us know a little more detail about how that went down for you.
Okay, yeah. So actually, I was super excited. Kind of surprised he was there, and he was taking a look at Connor because Connor had already, signed to go with the Rockies last year, and so Buddy got to watch me hit, and he told me, he was like, "Man, I really like what I see." And within 48 hours, my agent was like, "Hey, the Rockies want to sign you." And I was like, honestly, I was in tears just because I was so excited. Everything I've been up to that point, it just made me, so excited to give me another chance. And so, yeah, that was a super, super special day for me.
Everything that I've heard about you from people, the baseball community is both large and small at the same time, has been nothing but positive from when you're down in Albuquerque. Someone who got to know you in Iowa just says how great of a human being you are. And, you've got this extraordinary drive. Like you said, you were signed and you're very, very humble, and you have a lot of gratitude for that because you've been knocking on the door to the majors for a while. And although they haven't been opening for you, you keep knocking louder and louder, and that day will come for you. Where does that drive and that perseverance come from?
I think a lot of it's in my faith. And, one of the verses I pride myself on is I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Philippians 4:13, and I truly believe that. It's just I don't ever want to say I gave up on something, and hopefully I can be a role model to other players, because a lot of guys give up so soon, or whether it's baseball or anything else in life, they don't keep following their passion, and they give up on it too quick when when there's obstacles in the way. So yeah, I just keep driving, and I'm saying one day it's gonna happen, and yeah, just keep pushing forward.
All right. So Isotopes Park, maybe you can explain it a little bit for anyone who's never been there, who's never seen it up close. But how would you describe the Topes slope there in center field?
What's funny is 2017 was the first time I played there. I was with the Giants and the River Cats. And our outfield coach had us doing drills on the wall before the game. And I was like, man, I'm such a good athlete. There's no way I'm going to ever fall on this hill. And I forgot who hit the home run. It was a lefty. He was on the Topes. And this ball was way gone. I mean, by 50, 60 feet. And you can just see me on this highlight clip. I'm running up the hill, and boom, I eat it into the wall. It's just so steep. And so I think I kind of misjudged it on how it is. But last year was the first year where I played there a lot of games. So I finally was able to get used to it. But it's just funny because not only me, but everybody thinks they can do it right away. But it's a lot steeper than you think. It looks so cool, though. I really like how it's set up. But if you're not used to it, it's a little bit dangerous.
It seems like it's almost like 45-degree angle. Like it's incredibly steep. It's not even a hill. It's wild.
I know, man. I was on that thing all the time last year, and of course, Albuquerque, the ball kind of flies. So I started playing a little bit deeper in center, a lot deeper than I'm used to, and found myself on the hill more than usual. There's a lot of balls that are hit right there on the left side or the right side, all over the place.
I know you made that big highlight catch in July where you mastered it, had the big smile on your face and everything. Talk us through that play and talk about maybe, dreaming of running up to the hill and robbing a home run. We've never seen that before. That would be another level.
I know, that's what I wanted the whole year last year. I was like, let me get one of those plays. But yeah, I remember that situation. I was telling some of my teammates because everybody saw the clip back at home and stuff, but it was like a big situation. I think the game was tied. It was like in the 8th inning, and I was running up the hill, and I know I did the blow the kiss, and I was smiling at the fans and everything. Everybody was cheering for me, but those were like it just genuinely came out. I wasn't like a player on the other team. He asked me if I was doing it at the player, and I was like, no, in no type of way. And he's like, yeah, that's what we thought. It was just genuine. I was just happy that I caught the ball, and then I just got really excited about it. This game, you got to be. It's so stressful sometimes, so you just got to make it. You got to make it fun and find joy in the little things.
Yeah, we definitely need that a lot more. As you said, talking about playing at altitude, normally we just think about playing at altitude as being something that impacts the amount of home runs that are hit and the ball traveling farther. When you're in the outfield, when you're in center field, is there any kind of adjustment period with the fly balls there, or does your eye just kind of pick up the difference in what the ball's doing and you kind of just recalculate in a blink?
I definitely have to judge the altitude because places like Albuquerque, it really really does fly. And then we played a lot of games in Sugarland where the ball does not go at all. So just knowing beforehand what park I'm playing at really really helps. So I see a ball in the right center gap, I'm like, oh, I got to get moving. Whereas in Sugarland, Texas, it's kind of like I know it's not going to carry, so I got to get there, but I won't have as much room.
With this being your 2021 being your first season, entirely at altitude like this and in Albuquerque, what kind of effects did you notice that having on your body, and how were you able to maybe counteract that just a little bit?
Yeah, my brother went to University of New Mexico too, and I remember he used to always tell me, "Man, I can't breathe out here. I can't breathe." And I didn't. I was like, "Oh, it can't be that bad." Of course, I was a kid, but I finally, when I was there, I was like, "Oh, this is what they're talking about." So after the first couple of days, I kind of started getting used to it, but I did find out that I needed to warm up just a little bit more. It's not like humid at all, so I'd have to go through my stretches a little bit more. And my lungs, like I would get tired a little bit quicker than I normally would being from San Diego. So, but it wasn't that bad. Like I got used to it after a while. I was like, oh, now I see what you're talking about.
Have you heard at all, or maybe even seen in last year in spring training, Charlie Blackmon's workout regimen? I mean, he's kind of notably famous for even after games working out for 30,
Yeah,
45, even an hour.
absolutely, absolutely. To try to get ready for it, and I know it does help for sure.
Your manager there in Albuquerque, sort of a young up and coming manager, if you will. What was it like, being under his tutelage over the past year in Warren Schaeffer?
Honestly, he's one of the best managers I've ever had. He has such a good relationship with the players, and he's so easygoing and he's so easygoing, and he's willing to talk to you about anything. I absolutely loved it. And not only that, he likes to work hard, and so I think we kind of see eye to eye on that because nothing's come easy for me. I say that humbly. Like I know a lot of people don't have the same story, but I've had to work for everything I've gotten, and I think Schaefer's kind of been the same way. And you can see his passion for the game and his passion for helping players, and he genuinely wants you to do well. And there's nothing better than having that feeling. Like my manager, my coach, like he supports me no matter what. Like he really, really cares about me. So I really, really like him. I think he's a big league manager, and he's going to stick around for a long time.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Is he one of the youngest managers you've probably
Yeah,
ever
for
had?
sure. It was crazy because when I first saw him, I was like, man, this dude's like, he's swole. Like, this dude's in shape. And he's like, I'm Warren Schaeffer. I was like, oh, this is my manager right here.
That's so funny. I've thrown this out there. Let's see if you like it. So obviously in center field they call it Topes Slope. There also was a nickname out there from the previous manager who was Glen Allen Hill, so they call it the Glen Allen Hill.
Uh-huh.
And so I said, well, we got to keep the tradition. Let's rename it for Schaefer and call it Warren Peak.
Warren Peak.
Like War and Peace, I don't know. Maybe you could get that to stick.
I see
Most
where
people don't like it when I say it, but maybe you can make it work.
Okay. Do I need to like acknowledge you, or should I just bring it up to him? Like, I'll take credit.
Take the credit, and I'll tell everybody, behind the scenes, like, that was really me.
That was actually you. Yeah.
Actually, I got the receipts right here on this interview, so you know what? We're good either way. So we can both win out. It's all good, man. Warren Peak. Let's get it to stick.
Peak. I like it.
you play with a lot of really good ball players. A former Midwest League MVP like yourself, we'll get to that. And Elahiris Montero. I mean, he came up, partially through the season, but dude was bopping for a young guy there in the PCL, hitting a lot of home runs, playing good defense over at third base as well.
Absolutely, he's a really, really good player. I know he went to the Dominican this offseason too, and I saw some clips. He's good, man. He's good. I got to meet him in spring training. Got to do like a lot of talking, and at first I was like, how's this guy's English? And my Spanish isn't the greatest. It's pretty good, but it's not the greatest. So we were helping each other out in the beginning of spring training, like translating a whole bunch of stuff, and then just talking about the swing. And he's going to be special.
He is. Ryan Vilade, another guy too. I mean, you were right next to him there in the outfield. He was the youngest Isotopes player and one of the youngest in the league at only 22 years old. What kind of a future you think he's got ahead of him?
Excellent future, man. He's a great player, and he's got a good heart. Like similar to Schaeffer, I feel like he cares about his teammates. One thing about V, he always hustles. Any time of the game, he's always hustling, and I admire that because I'm the same way. It's like it doesn't matter if you're down 9 runs or if you're up 9 runs, you're still going to give the same effort. And I got to meet his dad last year too, and I think a lot of that comes from his father. Like I would like to spend some time with him to get to know him a little bit more too, because I think he's had a really good impact on V.
Yeah, I think they have a foundation down there in Texas, and I've seen Vilade going around supporting Sam Hilliard's foundation for ALS. So you're right. Like there's outside of the player aspect, which most people are most concerned about, behind the scenes, just as a human being, great person.
Absolutely.
One of the players that I think a lot of folks might not realize how talented he is. We got to see him a little bit in Denver with the Rockies, and there's kind of an open spot there at shortstop this year. But Alan Trejo, for anyone who doesn't know about Trejo, let him know.
This dude making plays at shortstop last year. I was like, there's a couple balls in the hole. I'm like, I'm gonna have to go to left center to get this. Have to cut it off for a double. Next thing I know, Trejo's in the hole making a backhand play, throwing him out at first, and he was swinging it really well too. We actually had a really, really good team last year. I'm surprised we didn't win more games. I think we just hit kind of a rough patch, which every team does. But Trejo, he's really good. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people as well.
Yeah, his power seemed to develop a lot more too. Again, another guy that kind of almost young for each level and skipped a level too early on in his career. So
right.
He's been a good bright spot. I think much like for the Rockies, they had a bullpen that it took them a while to gel, and in the second half of the season, a lot of rookies, but a lot of them did really well. I think the same was true for you guys. Chad Smith, Logan Cozart, and then 2 guys who came over from Double-A midway through the season, Jake Bird and Reagan Todd. Again, a really good relief corps that I know you got to see up close.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when it was late in the ball games, I knew we were going to get the job done, especially till the middle of the half of the year. And we were just trying to, produce enough runs to get those guys going, like in our bullpen. And like you said, I was seeing Jake this morning, and I had remnants of facing him last year. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's got 97 with this much sink, and there's a lot of outs coming in the bullpen. There's a lot of outs. These guys are good.
I know you got reunited a little bit last year with Bud Black, a guy you started your career off with, essentially, with the Padres. Can you share a little bit about what it's like, working with him again, and just the Rockies coaching staff in general?
Yeah, man. A lot of people don't know, but Buddy Black was the first one to put me in my first big league spring training game with the Padres. It was 2013, and I was having a really, really good spring training. I was working with Phil Plantier, the hitting coach. Luckily, in one off season in 2012, one of my coaches back home, Coach John Quintera, he mentioned my name to Phil Plantier, and Phil was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna bring you in and have you hit this off season." So I got really, I improved a lot that year after college, and going into spring training, I had a really good spring training. Buddy Black called me up to my first big league game, and so coming full circle to that, it's just like, man, there's no one I'd rather play for right now. It's like. That's who I felt like was going to be my manager, because when I was with the Padres, I came up a Padres fan, as a kid, of course, for especially in high school, like for a couple of years, So it was like Buddy Black, and so now I'm like, man, that's how I really want to play for. And anybody who talks about them, they always have the best things to say.
We won't hold that against you that you grew up as a Padres fan. It's not necessarily true anymore. But who were your guys back then? I think I might have overheard you once mention Phil Plantier as being a guy that you liked with San Diego back in the day a little.
Yeah, well, I guess it was more so players. Like I had my favorite players, like Griffey and David Justice, Tony Gwynn. But the thing was, like, I didn't go to that many games, but I went to a handful of games, and I needed someone to root for. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go with the Padres. And then at the time, like I said, in high school, I think Mike Cameron was the one who I kind of tried to model my game after, and he was playing in San Diego, played center field, so that's how I kind of modeled my game after for a little bit.
I meant to look this up. I didn't get a chance before, but I'm glad you brought up Mike Cameron. Have you played against Daz yet?
Mm-mm.
Okay, because that might be a little trippy for you to go. Hey, the guy that and now his son is against.
Right, I know. No, I haven't played against him yet.
That will be a wild day. Hey, remember the DNVR.com is only 50 cents for your first month. Your member-sized beer down at the DNVR bar in Colfax, New York. Could be a Breckenridge Brewery beer. You know, we also have the Good Company hard seltzer as well. If you're at one of our watch parties at the DNVR bar, you get extra raffle tickets, all that good stuff. Hoops fans, make sure you're checking out DraftKings Sportsbook to bet $1 to win $150 in free bets when using code DNVR. So when one of the big style parts of your game, if you will, is speed. And as you mentioned, Mike Cameron, I know I've heard you talk before about Rajai Davis being an inspiration for you as, you know, two guys who kept their speed tool deep in their career, which is pretty hard to do. How have you been able to stay at your peak for this long?
Honestly, it's just about working hard in the off season and even during the season. There's so many exercises you can do to just keep up the speed. And I think a lot of guys get a little bit. Oh, did we cut out? We're still good. Okay, yeah, a lot of guys get lackadaisical. You know, they don't feel like they still have it, but I'm like, I'm right in my prime right now. And I keep trying to learn. I remember my brother always telling me, it's like, you need to stay confident in your abilities and always keep a willingness to learn. And so if there's ever something I can pick up on, they got this new program, this guy, the knees over toes guy. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's on Instagram. Yeah. I mean, it's just like something always comes out every year to keep the longevity in your body. And I try to do my best to take care of my body, you know, whether it's taking a lot of vitamins or drinking a lot of water, all those little things I feel like help. And then in, you know, the off seasons, I've been able to work with some of my other favorite players like Vince Coleman and Kenny Lofton. They've taught me a whole bunch about stealing bases. And, you know, it's about getting that first jump, those first 3 steps. So I'm really, really blessed because a lot of guys have given me a lot of good advice along the way, and it's helped my speed grow. And I know early on in my career, I was getting thrown out a lot. I was stealing a lot of bases, but I was getting thrown out a lot. And now I've reduced those numbers where it's like I'm almost like 90% or whatever the percentage is, where I'm stealing them on a more regular basis.
I think you probably started last year like 16 or 17 in a row, maybe, but, you know, before you got caught. You mentioning Vince Coleman and Kenny Lofton there, it makes me think like of knuckleballers who, you know, they've got their fraternity and they kind of, you know, pass the secrets along, and they're right there. They've got their little union. I hadn't thought about this, but maybe there's you know, a base dealer, you know, fraternity going on there as well, where, hey, here's some of the trade secrets for, you know, having some longevity and stealing some extra bases. And I guess that could be true, huh?
It definitely is. Like all those guys you just mentioned with Davis, Lofton, like I said, Coleman. There's always like little tips on everything. Like Kenny's taught me how to pick up on pitchers. You know, we always look at pitchers, how they're tipping pitches when they're pitching, like while you're batting, but they're doing the same thing base running. You know, so there's a whole philosophy behind it. But I've been super, super lucky.
All right, so we're just waiting on Ricky Henderson then, right? He's the last piece of the puzzle.
I know. We got to get his number.
That's it. Well, we'll make it happen. It's going to happen soon. I can feel it. There's a lot of good things on the way for you here, Wynton.
Appreciate it.
With the speed part, I was thinking about this, and again, you look on your stat page, not a lot of ground into double plays. Is that one of like the worst feelings in baseball when you're a fast guy and you're like, I can never hit into a double play? When you do, that's probably worse than making 2 errors in the same game, I imagine.
It is. I feel so bad because I'm like, at least if I would have got on first, I would have had a chance to steal a base and then maybe somebody drive me in. But not making it to first base, you're just like, oh. And I'm saying, like, if I hit a one hopper right to the second baseman, right where he is, and you see them flip the ball, you know you're out. It's like, it's devastating. It is.
No, that's a good point, right? Because if you're on first base, at least if you can leg it out, you steal second. It's technically like you advance the runner over to second base.
Exactly.
You just happen to be the runner.
You're right. Exactly.
The Cubs, I know when you were with Iowa, there was some conversation, I believe, where they're thinking about using you in that Terrence Gore type mold, like as a primary pinch runner that could cause havoc on the bases, potentially be a difference in a close scoring ball game. Was that actually the case at that time?
Yeah. So my AA manager, he was telling me, he's like, hey, there's a good chance it's going to happen. They were looking at my numbers, and I guess they were coming down to watch me, and they liked everything that they saw. But for whatever reason, they didn't choose me, and that's just the way it goes sometimes. But I was fully prepared, and every day during BP, I was working on it as much as I could, and hopefully, other teams they've considered me for that role too. So hopefully that's still the case. It's definitely an art, and it's definitely an adrenaline rush, and there's nothing I look forward to more than stealing a base, and it's my dream to. Obviously, I would like to get on with a hit and steal a second base in the World Series game. Just that thought gives me joy. So hopefully that'll happen someday.
Do you have, when you get on first base, do you have to have almost a poker face when you're there? And by that, I almost mean like, nice to see you, first baseman, but shut up because I'm at work right now. I'm in my office. Like you can't have that convo like a lot of first basemen probably want to have, right?
Yeah, they try to get me every single time too. But at the same time, it's like I try to be playful at the same time. I might be giving too many secrets right here, but sometimes I get a lefty out there, and I'll be looking kind of lackadaisical, but I know I'm about to go, so I kind of play with them too. It's all a mind game, but like you said, there's been a lot of first basemen, and I could think of some off the top of my head who really try to talk to me over there and distract me, and I try not to let it get to me.
Don't worry, we'll make sure this podcast is blocked for all Pacific Coast League cities, so they can't. Look, if they're in the International League on the East Coast, they're going to know your secret.
Right.
We'll be safe this season at least.
All right, sounds good.
Fans, we look at different interesting sabermetric statistics like BABIP, your batting average in balls in play, or isolated power, statistics that might put a season or abilities in different contexts, but for a player, are there important metrics that you look at, or is it like more intrinsic where you just feel like what you're doing is right and you're going to be successful despite the actual outcome?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the second one because baseball's such a sport. It's harder on the athlete. From the fans' perspective, you look at numbers all the time, but there's balls you hit hard and then you get out. It's just like kind of what do you do? Even when you're hitting balls 105 miles an hour, they're tracking all that now, the exit velocity. It's like, yeah, you want to hit them hard, but sometimes those get caught. So obviously you set a goal for your numbers where you want them during the season, but try not to get too caught up in it because it might hurt you a little bit more than help. So yeah, I do my best to just kind of leave the numbers alone and focus on what I'm doing. But at the end of the day, like you see your numbers on the scoreboard every time you're playing, so what they are. It's just like you try not to think about them too much.
Very true. What is Albuquerque like? How is that as a city? Because you've been around a little bit now, having spent some time there. Besides the heat in the middle of the summer, how does it match up with some of the other towns you've played in?
I really like it, man. And the fans are really, really good there. They're into the game. You go to some of these cities and everybody just barely clapping or anything. I remember the first game, Greg Bird, he made an error at first, and instead of like booing him or anything, the crowd was chanting his name, like rooting him on. So it was unbelievable. I was like, this is what I'm talking about. Like these fans got our back. So it's like definitely a lively experience out there. They're more into the games than other cities.
That's very cool. Well, going back to the start of your career, as we mentioned earlier on, growing up in Southern California and Rancho Bernardo, about 30 minutes outside of San Diego. I think when some people think of Southern California, their first thought might not be, oh, there's probably a really great baseball community there. They're thinking surfing, skateboarding, palm trees, rollerblading maybe. I don't know. but they might not think about the baseball community, and it's really good. Maybe you can speak a little bit about that, and coming from a place that's got Hank and his brother Jake Blaylock. I know he didn't make it to the majors, but I remember seeing him when he was in the minors. Cole Hamels, like there's a seriously talented community in that Rancho Bernardo area.
Yeah, there definitely is. I don't even know the numbers. I'm sure there's 100 guys who played pro ball from Rancho Bernardo, and the school opened in 1992. I remember when my first year when I got there, someone told me, yeah, like 2 years before you were here, like the whole 1 through 9 team got drafted or played professional baseball. And then even when I was a senior, there was like 8 or 9 guys who played pro ball from that team too. So the talent in Southern California is up there, like definitely up there. Even in our conference, it was like Poway and Westview and Torrey Pines. All those schools had dudes going to the top D1s. And they used to call Rancho Bernardo the factory because they were producing so many different ball players. So I think we're definitely up there with the other states like Texas and Florida. Like Southern California is really good ball.
I imagine you may have carried that idea with you that, hey, I'm in the place that I should be, and with other guys who are on their way. I imagine you carried that reminder with you when you went to Niagara University, because that, wasn't a place that had the same kind of history of churning out not only just drafted players, but impact players like Blaylock and Cole Hamels. Was that a source of inspiration for you a little bit when you went to play out there in upstate New York?
It absolutely was. I remembered basically why I was going there, because you get caught up in had teammates from Niagara like, man, you're not going to get drafted. No one gets drafted out here. You hear all the negative stuff, but you just try to keep the optimism because your end goal. And so I just stayed super positive the whole time. And luckily, my senior year, the Padres, they were the first ones to take a chance on me when other teams didn't want to do it. So super thankful for that too.
That's awesome. When you went to Niagara, when you enrolled, so whatever it was, August when you went out there, were you only 17 years old still?
Yeah, 17.
Yeah, that's why I was also young, where I turned, like, after I graduated at 17, and then in the summer I turned 18. But I mean, you could have been behind one more year. You could have been a fifth year senior in high school, maybe, and got creative. How much of a challenge was that for you, always being one of the youngest guys? And I mean, maybe your development really came along quicker because of it.
Yeah, well, I didn't really understand it until I got into high school, and then I was like, wait, a lot of guys are getting held back in ninth grade for baseball or for sports, and I'm like, wait, how are these guys? They're a year older than me or 2 years older than me. I'm like, man, I wonder what I would have been like if I was a year older playing. So I do feel like I learned a lot of things quicker, though. I mean, I was a little bit younger, and not that it translated all the way. I feel like it translated a little bit later on. I wasn't into my body or whatnot. But yeah, I definitely feel like it worked out. I was glad that it happened. I got to play All Stars an extra year. The kids were a grade younger than me, but I got to play All Stars an extra year. And it's kind of cool being the young one.
Well, that's good that you had that balance of where, you were the youngest, and so you're at a disadvantage, but then you could also beat up in a way on the kids who were a grade younger. You were kind of the head of that class. So you got a little taste of both. It was kind of pretty perfect.
Exactly.
Being drafted by the Padres, dream come true. Then, nightmare a little bit. You get released by them, but then pretty soon after, you sign with Detroit, West Michigan Whitecaps, back to dream come true again. Talk a little bit about that whole experience that went down and what was ultimately like a calendar year, a worst case scenario into immediately best case scenario.
Yeah, you said it best. Honestly, when I got that call that I was getting released, I thought they were telling me my spring training report date. And I remember I was running on the track field. I saw I got a missed call from one of the guys and called him back. He's like, hey, man, we're going to have to let you go. Just started balling. And then within an hour, I snapped out of it. I was like, this isn't it. Like, just, keep fighting. And so I went down to the LA Dodgers tryout, and they basically said, we're all full. And so then I was like, I'm going to go to the Tigers tryout in Lakeland, Florida. And they signed me. I was the one out of 120 guys at that tryout camp. great, probably one of the greatest days I've ever had. At an all-time high right there. And then first game of the season, somebody gets hurt. I wasn't starting, and then I got my opportunity, and I ran away with it. I got the Midwest League MVP, and then to top it off, like 2 weeks later, they put me on the 40-man roster. I was just like, look how stuff happens in 1 year.
Yeah. You, like you said, you're on the track. You go from hitting a bottom there where you're cut, and then a year later, you're in the same class of other Midwest MVPs like Byron Buxton, Eloy Jimenez, Bo Bichette,
Yep.
Rockies legend Carlos Gonzalez, Mike Trout. Things work out. Things find a way.
I know. Absolutely, man. That was one of the greatest days. Even when they named me, and there was a lot of good players in the league at the time too who were going for that same award. So I was super lucky that I got it.
And one of your roommates, I don't know if it was West Michigan. It may have been either that or Erie. Doing some pretty big things right now, and Mr. Ben Verlander.
Yeah.
How great has it been to see his success lately?
It's been awesome, man. He's been all over the place on Twitter and on TV. I'm super, super, super pumped for him. He's a really, really good guy. One of my friends, one of my friends were just talking about him, last week of how good of a guy he is. So I'm super pumped for him. He was a good ball player too, but I think he's really found his passion in what he's doing right now.
Yeah, he's grinding away, and it definitely shows. You've traveled the world with baseball, and and everything that I know about you and from our conversation now, I imagine you've essentially leveraged your ability to play baseball to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to see some different parts of the world. I'm going to go to Mexico. I'm going to go to Venezuela. I'm going to go to Australia. Might as well, right? Is that your thinking behind it of like, look, I'm going to kill two birds in one stone. I'm going to get better. I'm going to get my reps in, but I'm also going to see a little bit of planet Earth.
Yeah, I know. Honestly, it's mostly number one. Like it's mostly, I want to get better. Like when I went to Australia, I did it right before spring training because I want to get some more at bats. This year, I wanted to work on something. I was really frustrated because I had a terrible month. I don't know what it was last year. It might have been June. And I knew I was doing something wrong. I couldn't fix it. I was like, I'm going to Mexico this year, and I'm going to fix what I was working on. So every year, it's always something. I went to the Dominican to basically get signed. I didn't have a team. And so I was hoping somebody else would take a look at me when I was in the Dominican. So there's always a case, but at the same time, it's been a huge blessing. Like, how many people can say they've been to Venezuela or Australia, Dominican, like all these places that nobody gets to see, and I'm there doing it for the game I love. So I'm super, super lucky.
And you really become, I think, an ambassador for the game too, as an American player, and particularly I think in Australia, because the cool thing that they do is they work so closely with the youth team. I mean, some of the players on your team, temporarily 17, 18-year-old kids. I mean, we saw Genevieve Beacom become the first female to play in the Australian Baseball League this past year at 17. And so I like that idea that they're doing that. And how cool is that to kind of talk to the next generation of ball player when you were down there?
It was really cool. We did a whole bunch of kids camp in Australia in particular, and they really like baseball. They follow, they have MLB The Show. They love it down there, and it's just not as ingrained in their mind. They play rugby. They do cricket. Those are like the big games over there. So seeing like the younger kids and kind of teaching them, they have a lot of room to grow. Like I was telling them simple things and they had no idea. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like there's probably a lot more talent than we think down here. They just need to be ingrained with it more.
Yeah, we know here in Colorado, there's a story of Larry Walker where playing ball up in Canada didn't get as many reps, and there was a fly ball in the outfield. He didn't tag up, and so he was at third base, and they said, hey, you got to go back to first. And so he did, but he ran across the back of the mound. He didn't know he had to retouch second base. So it's that same general idea of, wow, as much as they know and as talented as they are, they don't know everything you need to know about the game to be successful.
Exactly. That's a funny story. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Playing down in Mexico, I don't think there's a team in Mexico City, but I know there is one in Monterey. With MLB potentially expanding at some point in the future, other international cities have been kicked around. Do you think, maybe a Mexico City or a Monterey could, possibly be a home for an expansion city as far as what you've seen with passion and, the stadium and the support that the fans have down there?
If they went to Monterey, if there's an expansion team, it would sell out every game, 100%. They love it down there. They love baseball. Even the games we were playing there's like 16, 18,000 at the game, and I know if they had an MLB team down there, it would be completely packed. The atmosphere is unreal. It's more of like a party, though. I mean, pitch by pitch, they're banging on drums, and every pitch they're playing music in between at bat. So I don't know if they'd have to change that if they were going to do an expansion team, but it's pretty lively down there. It's not even. It doesn't feel like a baseball game. It feels like a concert.
Speaking of concerts, have you picked your walk-up music yet for this season, or have you got a couple more weeks before you have to lock that in?
Yeah, I still got a couple more weeks, but it's like every time I hear a new song, I'm like, oh, that's what I got to do. Even during the Super Bowl when Dr. Dre and Snoop came out, and I was like, man, this sounds good. And I was like, maybe I should do this, maybe just the instrumental. But yeah, I'm still trying to choose it.
Do you usually keep one for the entire season, or will you mix it up if you're like, okay, clearly I've gone over 12 because of the song, and you will change it?
I try to keep it, but there has been some times I'm thinking like 2015 where I changed it like 7 times, and they're like, really, Wynton? Like, are you really gonna change it again? So now I just try to keep it as long as I can. But I'm like that type of guy in the car who listens to the song for like a minute and then I'm on to the next one because I love every single song.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Finally here, I just want to ask about the pandemic season in 2020. Obviously, it wreaked a lot of havoc on players and their development, but you actually were able to find a way to have somewhat of a partial season down there in Texas. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I got to go to the Constellation Energy League. I know Pete Incaviglia, Roger Clemens. They all put this league together, and it was pretty good. We had some good talent down there. There's some guys that were on the 40-man roster, and they were playing there, and then they'd get called back up to go to the alt side and whatnot. But I was super lucky, and that off season, I mean, obviously everybody's thing was shut down, but I found a way to stay ready. I remember talking to my family about it. I remember my brother was asking, he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Man, in this game, you never know." And my mom was the same way. She's like, "You might need to just take a break." I did take a break for a little bit, but after a few weeks, I was like, something's gonna happen. I want to be ready for that when it comes. So, texted a couple of my friends. We were able to do live at bats and hit at a local outdoor cage. There's always ways to get better, So, I took it as a blessing instead of like a negativity thing. I just try to stay positive about it, and I was like, this is what I got to work on. This is the perfect time for me to work on it.
Did it allow you a little bit of a reset? Where I've heard some players just talk about, well, I certain areas I needed to work on, but I gotta do baseball stuff most importantly. Well, hey, what now I can kind of maybe work on those flaws either in my physique or just building up certain muscle groups. Did it provide any kind of benefit in a way to say you can't play baseball?
Yeah, it actually did for a little bit. I mean, obviously I was hungry. Mentally, I really wanted to be playing, but I just tried to turn it into, okay, how can I get better? And so, I mean, I was doing all these, the med balls and stuff with your arm. I was doing all those exercises, and I never really got to like learn how to do it. And even with my speed, there was some stuff I wanted to work on with my jump. Obviously, my hitting, which we probably always work on the most. I was like, okay, this is what this guy's doing, and it was a time where I could clear my head and be like, okay, I could really analyze what's going on, and it was beneficial for me, honestly.
All right, last question. You got to run through the details of Family Feud. You think I was gonna? Come on, I asked everything else. I did my homework here, Wynton. Come on.
Oh my gosh. It's funny thinking about walkout songs too, because my first year in Eugene, they started playing the family. It was like 2 years after I've been on the show, but they started playing the Family Feud walkout song every single time I came up to the plate.
That actually works because that's like you're walking up to the podium to answer the question.
Exactly.
We interviewed 100 center fielders and we asked them. It's like, hey, that's the same kind of concept. I love that.
Right. The only thing that threw me off is they put my picture on the board too. I had like a little afro, and then they put it on the board, so I just started cracking up. I think I struck out that at bat because I was laughing. But no, so me and my brother Wayne, he played professional basketball for 17 years. He would always come home in the off season. And so we were playing the Family Feud game on the original Nintendo, like the 1990 game. But we didn't know any of the answers because all the answers were from 1990. And we must have stayed up for 4 hours playing this thing, like determined to beat it. Like we would not go to bed. It was like 3 a.m. I was like, man, we can't beat it. I was like, Wayne, let's go on the real show. And he thought I was kidding. I was like, no, let's do it. So he fell asleep on the couch. I'm on my laptop typing in, how do we get on Family Feud? I send him an email. I just write an email within 30 minutes telling my brothers, play professional sports, and my dad always wanted us to be on the show. They emailed me back at 9 a.m. They said, if you can make it to auditions in LA, then you're on. And so we made it to auditions, and that's how we got set up. And then on the show, we got to meet Steve Harvey. We just had an absolute blast. It was such a good experience. I would recommend that for anybody. So if you want to go on, you got to go.
And I got to live in California and be driving distance because they're going to call you, in like 6 hours after you fall asleep.
I know.
All right. Well, I wonder what the next endeavor. I mean, Jeopardy. What are we thinking?
I don't know. I did so rough on that show. Everybody always gives me a hard time. They're like, man, you need to retire your game show career. So I feel like I need to redeem myself, though. Jeopardy might be good.
Could be. I mean, there's no real adult family games. I mean, Double Dare would have been the thing back in the day, but we might be a little too old for that. But you never know. Someday.
I know, right?
I'm not going to count you out. I know that's for sure. If I learned anything about your career, Wynn. This has been fantastic, man. We're excited to see you guys. Season kicks off in Oklahoma City on April 5th. And then I think that next Tuesday, whatever that is, maybe the 8th, you guys are back in Albuquerque to open it up. I think against Sugarland, oddly enough. So it's going to be exciting. Wish you the best of luck, Wynn. I really appreciate your time. And I'll have to see you, come say hi to you down in Arizona in the next week or two during the spring training camp. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sounds good. My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, too.
Absolutely. Hey, this has been great. You know what they say about momentum? It's only as good as tomorrow's podcast.